This happened back in 2013, my first year of college. I had set up all afternoon classes, so I got to sleep in all of my first semester. This is important later. I had been moved in for maybe 3 months or so, and I slept with earplugs in and my bedroom door closed because I'm the lightest sleeper ever, and that trait in the city do not mix well. One morning I woke up and I noticed that the door to the hallway right across from my bed was opened, and there was a scraggly man staring at me from the hall. Looking back, I'm not sure how I wasn't more scared. I was eerily emotionless, but that could have been due to me being half asleep. I took out my earplugs, and the first thing the man asked was, "Why are you here? Shouldn't you be in school?" Then he started explaining to me that he was the maintenance man here to change the air vent filter. I was surprised because we never put in a request for this or anything. Still in bed and confused how my door had opened, I looked to my right and saw the dog cowering in the corner of my room. He was curled in a ball and violently shaking. I have never seen an animal so scared in my life. I assumed that the dog had busted into my room, and that's why my door was open. The maintenance man kept saying that he didn't hurt the dog and that he didn't know why he was scared, and he was just here to clean the vent. The dog was a medium-sized, very friendly, but he also wasn't just scared of anyone. So this was seemingly kind of BS to me. I was freaking out because I didn't know what he did to the dog at this point. The maintenance man kept insisting that he should get the dog treats and asking where they were. I told him the dog didn't have any because I wanted him to leave. I should have just asked him to leave, but I was 18 and I didn't know what to do and was a little creeped out. Despite my discouragement, he went away and came back with a treat. I don't know how he knew where they were because they were hidden under the kitchen sink. He tried to get the dog to eat the treat, which he didn't, and eventually left. I tried to comfort the dog and then went into the rest of the house. I noticed in the hallway a puddle of dog pee and a baseball bat just laying out. Putting 2 and 2 together, I realized this man must have hit the dog with our baseball bat and scared the pee out of him, and the dog then proceeded to bust into my room. We took the dog to the vet and he showed some bruising on his back. My roommates and I reported the maintenance man to the apartment complex, and he did work here, but he was written up and not fired. He didn't come back to the apartment that year. However, he did 2 years later after I had moved out, and he tried to hit on my roommate, Classy. I'm still not sure why he hit the dog. He was not an aggressive dog. He was very friendly. It was also creepy how surprised he was that I was home. What else would he have done if I wasn't there? By the way, the dog ended up fine, but he had pretty bad behavioral problems after the experience. Let me start this out by explaining a bit about myself. I'm now pushing 40, and although I have lived in the same area of this country most of my life, and even now I only live 4 miles from the house where I grew up, I never really kept contact with many friends of mine from high school. It's not that I have issues with them, it's just life, work, kids, chores. You know how life goes. On rare occasions, I would run into a friend from my past at the grocery store, or something like that. A few times even on the job sites that I work at. I am an electrician by trade and I work in various places. About 2 weeks ago, I ran into a friend of mine, Scott, that I hadn't seen in damn near 20 years. Although we had not seen each other, we instantly hit it off again, as if we'd been hanging out together every day since we graduated. It was very nice, and we actually sat and had a meal together and several drinks, discussing my marriage to my wife and his multiple failed attempts to domestic bliss. During the conversations, we discussed our lives and what we had been up to since we last spoke. But one thing that really caught me as odd was a simple comment made almost as a joke. "You ever catch up to your twin?" Scott had laughed when he asked it, but something about the question bothered me. Now, I'm an only child, and although it seems odd to ask me such a thing, I instantly remember what he was talking about, even though I've not spoken of it or nor thought of it since I was a child. In high school, I have gotten my temp driver's license and had gotten my first car, a 1966 VW Beetle. Although I was quick to get my license, issue with the car that I had to have eventually stopped me from doing much driving. I can honestly say that I didn't drive regularly anywhere until I was nearly 19 years old. Though, out of high school, people would say to me, "Hey, I saw you Saturday night and waved," or "Why didn't you wave back the other night when I saw you?" And I'd be completely confused at where they saw me. That being said, when asked, it was almost always in places that I was unaware of or didn't frequent often at all. Friends, teachers, even my aunt one time asked me, "What type of car is the little silver one you drive?" And I'd always laugh thinking that they were messing with me a bit, and often joke that it must have been my twin. I never owned a silver car, not once in my life. And at the time, I surely only owned my small blue Beetle. Outside of my aunt, most of the people who saw me usually asked if I had an older brother who looked like me. It got to the point that one time I had a girlfriend who swore she saw me riding with a girl who was undoubtedly not her in a silver hatchback. I've always just thought of it as a mistaken identity, or people's eyes are playing tricks on them, until the conversation with Scott a few weeks ago. Something about the question hung in the air throughout the conversation, and I couldn't shake it. We exchanged phone numbers, and I promised that we wouldn't let another decade or two go by without hanging out again and seeing each other regularly. I went home for the night and filled my wife in on the conversation. She was glad to hear that I'd ran into an old friend, and with little more conversation, I fell back into my normal life. 3 days passed before I received a voicemail from Scott, which had been sent while I was at work. "Hey man, it's Scott. You said you wouldn't be a stranger. Give me a call back. I found something I want to ask you about." There was nothing more to the message, but my interest piqued enough that, as antisocial as I usually am, I picked up the phone and called him back. Answering my call on the second ring, he told me that, after he had gone home, our meeting just wouldn't leave his mind, and he had found himself digging through pictures of us in our youth, our friends hanging out at the football games, and even horrible school dance pictures with our then-girlfriends. The conversation was nice, but nothing would lead me to believe that something that would come out would bother me so much. Towards the end of the conversation, he got kind of weird and asked me if he could see me again, that he had to show me and ask me about a picture. Thinking that perhaps he just was desperate for a friend, having heard his misfortunes in love and marriage, I sent him my address after we agreed upon a time to meet. I arrived home from work a bit before 6 p.m. and by a quarter after he had arrived and was awaiting me in the living room when I came down from my shower. My wife had entertained him and gotten him a drink while they waited for me. Everything was relaxed and seemed comfortable, but Scott had an uneasy look about him. My wife excused herself from the visit and went back to helping our daughter with her math homework. Scott sat uneasily and I moved the chair just beside him. A end table separating us and nothing more. "You okay, bud?" I ask. "Yeah, He pauses for a moment and pulls out a small tan envelope. "Remember when you gave me this?" He hands me an envelope and I take it from him. Before I can open it and remove the contents, he continues, "I never pulled the pictures out of there, not one time. But I did peek in one time. I didn't even realize there were 2 pictures. The back one was kind of stuck to the front one. I've now pulled the pictures out, and the front one makes my stomach sink. It's a picture of me and a blonde girl leaning against a small gray hatchback. It's a Plymouth Laser or an Eclipse or something of that style. Can't really tell. I'm wearing an oversized green hoodie, which I remember clearly, and large Jinko jeans with boots, but for the life of me, I have no clue who the blonde girl is at all. We're embracing each other slightly and she's looking up at me lovingly. I'm not aware of where the picture was taken or anything else about it. I look up at Scott. What is this? I gave this to you? Scott nodded. Yeah, I got the envelope from you one night out at a field party. At the time I figured you were cheating on Jill, my then girlfriend, and didn't want anyone to see the pictures. I found it in a box of old things the other night, and that's when I realized there are 2 pictures in there, not one. I pulled the pictures apart. The front of the back picture sticking slightly to the back of the front. The second picture is of the same girl. This time she's topless, and we're kissing and laughing in the back seat of what I can only assume is a silver car. In the car's quarter window, Scott smokes a cigarette with a large look on his face, standing beside a guy in a blue jean jacket. I looked the picture over and looked back to Scott. I gave these to you. I tried to remember who or when this picture would have been taken, and when told roughly a time and date, I am sure I had not been at any type of party. The time frame he was speaking of was when my grandfather had passed away, and I spent nearly a month out of school with my father, half away across the country, dealing with the matters that occur when someone passes away. Scott seems distressed slightly and asks me who she is. I honestly don't know, man. It wasn't like I was a ladies' man or anything in my youth. I'd have a few girlfriends and whatnot, but I'd never been the fling type of guy or been some kind of girl magnet stud. Scott looks at me silently for a moment and continues. I swear to God, man, I always thought it was odd when you gave them to me, but I swore you had made me swear never to show them to anyone, and that you get them from me later. You never asked, and quite honestly, I completely forgotten them up until the other night. I slipped the photos back into the envelope and think back hard through my memories to still find nothing. Scott eyes the envelope and then asks a simple question. Do you know who I'm standing with? The guy in the jean jacket? I open the envelope again and look over the second picture to find a blank in my mind of who the other person is. No, man, I honestly don't know who that is. Scott nods slightly to himself and clears his throat. That's my cousin Jimmy. I'm confused on why he asked if I knew who it was, when he obviously already knew whom it was in the picture. Okay. I ask before he continues. I'd say we're about 16 to 17 in that picture, right? I nod. Yeah, I don't remember the girl either, or the car, but I remember the party vaguely. Mainly just you giving me that envelope after the party. But the one thing I know for a fact is that my cousin Jimmy died when we were 12, man. There's no way he should have been in that picture with us. His words hung like a fog over the room. I swear to God, man, Jimmy died on the playground at the middle school. I nod and remember hearing about it happening. He had taken a spill backwards off of a swing and had broken his neck. He died due to complications afterwards. It was shortly before he had met Scott, the summer before we had really became friends. Scott continued, stood to his feet. I had to get rid of that picture, man. He stirs in place for a moment. That picture can't exist, man. He rubs his hands back through his hair and looks physically tired and stressed. I stand to move towards him in an attempt to calm him, and as I do so, my wife comes into the room, hearing Scott's raised voice. Everything okay, boys? She smiles and eyes me nervously. I calm her with a simple nod. Yeah, Scotty is okay. He's just upset about something that happened. I put my hand on his shoulder and squeezed slightly while pulling him to my side. The conversation stops here, and after a moment, Scott apologizes and leaves. He only repeated one thing before he left. There's no way he should be in that picture. With Scott's departure, now a few hours passed, my wife and I sit in the living room, children in bed, and we discuss our day. Inquiring on Scott's visit, I pull out an envelope and hand it to her. There's 2 photos in that. The second one is the one that has him bothered. Don't get weird about it, I say as I do. She opens the envelope and pulls the pictures out and smiles suddenly and laughs. I didn't know you knew Amy, she said, and then flips to the second picture. Oh, you really did know Amy. She laughed and pretended to be shocked by the topless photo before continuing. You've never mentioned that you knew her to me. Well, that's the weird thing. I don't know her. I don't remember that picture at all. I don't have a clue who she is at all. But it's the guy with Scott that is what is bothering him. I motion towards the picture and she looks again at them. You mean Jimmy Stanton? She asked questioningly. Why would that get him so upset? I looked at her oddly, thinking to myself that my wife and I had not met until we were both in our 20s and that she had gone to school in a different school district. I ask, how do you know him? She laughs and replies, we dated for a few months back in 1997. He was a bad kisser. She hands the pictures and envelope back to me. I went to high school with both of them. They live over in Smith Township. I explained what had happened to Jimmy when he was 12, just before I met Scott, and she assured me I was mistaken. Smith Township is about 15 miles from where Scott and I grew up. How can it be that my wife has pictures of vivid memories of Jimmy and Amy through her entire high school life? But Scott and I both know that Jimmy died in 1992 when we were 12 and 13, respectively, and neither of us remember Amy at all. All of us graduated in 1998, although from 2 different schools in 2 different districts, and my wife and I met in 2001. I would like to share my latest experience regarding people you would never want to meet again in your life. For those who remember the peeping eye story on Reddit about the person who would stare into your house through the peephole, this is a similar experience to that. But first things first, I live with my fiance in an apartment building on the 6th floor, and for the sake of accuracy, I'll repeat the layout of my apartment floor. There are 4 apartments on each floor. The apartments are split into a bubbled area, 2 and 2, each pair having a bubble together. Basically, a metal door guarding the 2 apartments and so on. Good. Now that the layout is out of the way, I'd like to mention the fact that I am a cat fosterer. I take in stray cats and then rehome them. Last week, I took in my kitty, Leela, to the vet for her deworming procedure. I step out of the elevator and there are roughly 10 steps more to make towards the entrance to our building. The entrance is guarded by a metal door, the bottom half, and glass, the upper half, with absolutely no other protection. Basically, any drunk or angry person can just smash the window and invite himself in without any problems. So I step outside the elevator and go for the main door, where I notice this fairly young man, white hoodie, wearing a black cap, and a pair of black sunglasses resting on his head. Most important detail, his right eye was swollen and purple, as if he caught a punch right in that eye. This guy was standing in front of the door, where I can clearly see his upper body positioned in my direction. I'm thinking to myself, maybe he's looking for his keys or waiting on someone to come out, and that's why he stands there. Open the door and I move exactly 2 steps out. This is a moment where this guy engages with me under the form of a request. Do you have a light? I politely answer, sorry, but I don't smoke, and I try moving away with my errands. By the time I get to make another step, he already grabs the tip of Leela's ear. Not hard, not pulling, just playing with it. And with an ice cold stare asks me the following. Do you want me to pick up your kitty and smash her in the cement? I am shocked, but mostly furious, because I am an animal activist and I have absolutely no remorse to punch an abuser in the face. I look at him and ask him, what the fuck did you just say to me? Hoping that my tone and body language would make him back up and realize what a fucked up thing he said. But no, he is not moved by my reaction, even repeats his question with a lower voice. I said, do you want me to pick up your kitty and smash her into the cement? I did not expect this. I did not know how to reply to such a question, other than with what I did. How could you ask such a question? To which he replied, come on, go away, you're distracting me. Distracting him from what exactly? This is my building, and you're sneaking around, you approached me, and at this point you're scaring me, mister? But I move away fast and get Leela's visit to the vet done. I tell my boyfriend about it, and he is clearly mad. I didn't call the police on the guy, but the police in my country are the type of officers that would just more likely arrest a person that makes a phone call rather than one whom they are called to take actions on. Obviously, I was afraid they would classify it as a prank call and I would get in trouble. So I did it. I decided to move on with my life and erase that experience out of my mind, leaving aside the nightmares I had after. I thought we're done, but not yet. My boyfriend works in a hospital, therefore he has day shifts and night shifts. I never had a problem being alone by myself during nights, even if the neighborhood is not that safe. For my fellow Americans to help better understand, it's like a ghetto neighborhood. We just have a different word for it. I would still sleep well knowing I was safe within my own home. So my man leaves for work, closes our door, closes the metal door, the bubble door I mentioned earlier, and takes the elevator downstairs to exit the building. After 10 minutes, he calls me, and the conversation went something like this. Him, hey babe, I don't want to scare you, but how exactly did you say that guy looked like? Me. Well, he has black hair, brown eyes, black cap, and a pair of sunglasses. Oh, and his right eye swollen from a punch? Me. Yes, why? Him. I just met him. He was standing in front of the main door, kicking the door with his feet and slamming the glass with his palms. He was shouting at me to open this fucking door right now. Me. Oh my god, is he there now? Is he trying to get in? Where is he? Him. I called the police the second he started shouting at me to let him in. I wouldn't. I told him to call the intercom or use his key, because he said he lives at the 10th floor and he couldn't get in. Me. And what happened after you called the cops? Him. He immediately ran away the second he saw me pull out my phone. I gave the officers his description and left for work. Close the door twice, make sure the metal door is locked, and turn the key in. And call me the moment you feel something funny. 30 minutes after this conversation ended, my boyfriend calls me back that the officers called him back to let him know that they found the guy that matched our description, but couldn't retain him, as he did nothing wrong. Now you see why we can't call the police for small stuff and let him go. Remembering that he said he lives on the 10th floor, I go to the building manager, which is my door-to-door neighbor, and I tell her about this experience. I asked her if there is anyone matching his description that lives on our building. She tells me there is a guy, same age, and looks like him, that lives there. A guy that consumes drugs and alcohols, whose mother had passed away a while ago, and now he lives there by himself. Lately, we noticed knife marks inside the elevator cabin, all over the walls. The lines are horizontal, long and deep lines, and we take the elevator twice a day, at least. There is no way you can't see them. I am beginning to think. I am beginning to have night terrors and wake up in the middle of the night to sounds at the door. I have the constant feeling that someone is playing with a set of keys outside our door and so on. It is consuming me because I had such an experience where the metal door wasn't probably locked properly and someone got so close to almost breaking into my house. If it weren't for my cat smelling the culprit that announced me of an intruder, and now I am obsessed with the thought that maybe this psycho could be my neighbor, and possibly these won't be the last times we meet him. The bare thought of him walking around with a knife and scratching walls, being outside our door, scares me bad. And if it weren't enough, my boyfriend opened up to me with a similar situation one night when he got home from work. He said I was inside sleeping that night and he came home late, at around 10 to 11 p.m. He said he just got out of the elevator at our floor and only closed the elevator door when he heard a rustling noise, like when you wear a winter jacket on a mountain and move your arms around your body. That sound is what he heard. He said the moment he stopped moving, the noises stopped as well. He remembers feeling as someone was climbing up the stairs to the next level, but when he didn't move, the person stopped with him. So my boyfriend waited and waited and waited, trying to replicate the sound, but with no avail. He told me he waited for maybe 10 minutes until out of nowhere, right from like in the middle area of the first set of stairs, some guy came running down, not up as he heard the person going, passed by him and went to the lower floors. No words, he couldn't see his face. Well, and only after my boyfriend waited around 10 minutes for something. Obviously now I'm scared that someone is stalking us or is scouting the apartments to see who is not home. I can assure you all though, my faithful baseball bat from Peeping Tom's story is still with me, and I will not hold down to smash some intruder's head if my home is invaded. In conclusion to this story, the neighbor who has no idea what compassion and manners and boundaries, intimacy, and so on, and let's not meet again. I promise you will not like it.